Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Tony Barber, the Europe editor of the Financial Times, and for the next hour and 20 minutes or so, we're going to be addressing the first topic of the conference, which is the Eurozone crisis and EU institutions. What is the optimal design? To guide us through this subject, we have a rich mix of expertise on the panel in front of you. Starting on my right, Fulvio Conti, who is the chief executive of Enel, Italy's largest power company, where he has been CEO since 2005. Next to him, to my immediate right, Daniel Gros, who is director of the Center of European Policy Studies. He's held that position for the last 12 years. To my left, Elena Carletti, who is Professor of Economics here at the European University Institute. To her left, Olli Rehn, Vice President of the European Commission and, of course, the Economic and Monetary Affairs Commissioner. And on my far left, although that's no indication of his political orientation, is Fabrizio Saccomanni, the Director General of the Bank of Italy since 2006. Now, I shall be asking four of these panelists to give concise presentations of about 7 minutes or so, and when they've finished, we'll have a discussion on the points they've raised. However, before that, I'm going to pass the floor to Elena, who is going to set out the main challenges that confront the EU institutions and the Eurozone in these testing times that we are living through. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and good morning to everyone. If you can put my slides on, please. Okay, thank you. So my role as an academic coordinator of the session is to lay out very briefly an agenda or a possible agenda for the debate. As you see, the discussion is divided into two panels. These are very closely interlinked. I will try as much as possible to maintain them differently, but I'm sure there will be many issues that will be touched upon in both of them. Now, I would like to start with a brief reminder of the various phases of the crisis, because I think this will help us understand where we stand currently and what kind of reform have been done so far. So everything started in 2007, in the summer, in a very tiny little market called subprime mortgage market. And from there, the crisis spread very rapidly and very massively, I would say, into the global financial system. This led to massive public intervention in various forms, ranging from stimulus programs, liquidity injection, recapitalization plans, and public guarantees. And all these measures, together with already a start of the economic slowdown and therefore also a reduction in fiscal revenues, led to the last part of the crisis where we currently are, which is the sovereign debt crisis. Now, it's important to remember that this is not only a crisis of the Eurozone. We see large deficit and sustainability problem in many economies, but I think it's fair to say it's particularly acute in the Eurozone. Now, what Europe has done so far to deal with this crisis? Well, some institutions have been established, starting with the European Systemic Risk Board, the European Financial Stability Facility, and the subsequent European Financial Stability Mechanism. And also a series of treaty reforms and legal arrangements have been done, and so what is called the fiscal compact. Now, if we think all these reforms center around three main pillars: fiscal austerity, which is what every day we are discussing right now; firewalls, in the sense that by creating these institutions, bailout funds, there is the idea that we can avoid contagion and restore confidence in the sustainability of the Euro countries. And finally, monitoring risk in the financial sectors. And with this apparatus, we should see and we should have a system able to prevent future crises. Now, the first question is, where is growth in this debate? And we know that we are aware that so far growth has not played such an important role in the design of this reform, but this is now on the agenda. We are discussing a growth pact, and I'm sure this will be touched upon probably mostly in the second panel. Now, sticking to what has been done so far, there are crucial issues that come to mind. The first one is we can discuss to which extent what has been done so far is a good achievement. Now, the first question is, will the European Stability Mechanism be big enough? And the question here is whether it will be enough to help and sustain confidence in small countries, but whether this will also be enough for bigger countries like Spain or even Italy, if the worst comes to terms. And the second question is whether the fiscal compact is credible. We know that this compact is based on the same mechanism as the previous one, that is sanctions. And we know that so far this mechanism has not really been working very well. Also, it has very strict rules, and it's not clear that countries will be able to comply with it, in particular in such a difficult economic downturn. But the other question is an issue of short-term versus long-term. All the measures that have been taken so far in the euro area and in Europe more generally seem to respond more to a long-term vision, which is we are building institutions, we are disciplining public deficit, we are disciplining governments, and this will ensure that we will not have a crisis in the future. But it's not clear that what has been done so far is really directed to the short-term urgency that we are facing right now. And talking about short-term, the only a main institution that is actually doing something at the moment for that is the European Central Bank. It is the institution that has acted like a fireman in this urgent moment, and its role and its instruments and facilities have been evolving during the crisis quite importantly. And this has led to a debate about what is the role of central banks in crisis management, and in particular, what is the border, or whether there is an exact and precise border between monetary policy and fiscal policy at the right moment. In any case, we know that what the European Bank is doing also with this last long-term refinancing operation cannot be anything else than just a short-term relief and not a panacea. So we all hope that the policymaker will actually continue pushing for further reforms to achieve what is needed to maintain the euro area. Now, in my mind, what we really need is a vision for these long-term reforms. And this vision should somehow center around the three main points. The first one is probably there is the need of a clearer objective. We need to be clear what kind of the euro area do we want. Do we want a euro area as it is, with all the current members and possibly some more? Or do we want a euro area where default is eventually possible and maybe even exit? Either objective we choose to achieve, the second step is to create an instrument and institutions that are coherent with this objective. That means if the euro area should remain as it is or even become larger without default, we should deal and seriously deal more with the urgency that we are facing at the moment. Whereas where default is also allowed, then we should create institutions possibly that are able to deal with the consequences of a possible default of a sovereign state. But again, whatever objective is chosen, this has to be credible and implementable, not only from an economic perspective, but most of all also at the moment from a political perspective. And we will go back to that in the second panel. So all in all, the question is, what do we really want? Do we want an austerity union, which is what we are mostly having at the moment, but doesn't seem to be working at the moment very well? Do we want to have a transfer union, where richer economies, wealthier economies, give transfer either directly or indirectly to weaker economies? Or do we want to have a default union, where, as I said, the countries may default on the sovereign debt and maybe even leave the Eurozone? Or do we want a combination of all these type of unions we can have? And on this big question mark, I would like to leave the floor to the speakers. Thank you.